Hey everyone. Okay. Realized I was muted, so thanks, John, for letting me know. Um, we have a lot of content to pack today in just 1 hour. We're trying to talk about a lot of like job hunting details. We also have an awesome advanced class alumni UDN with us here today. So I'm gonna be valuable for time to make sure we get to some questions you all might have for her. Everyone can hear me right now, I assume? Okay. And then we also want to talk about like the timeline, stats, application, and then of course like congratulate everyone who interviewed for advanced class cohort and everyone who made it. So I definitely want to make sure we spend enough time on that as well. So we're gonna get started right away. Here's our agenda. First topic we're gonna talk about is this is kind of like a hot take, but honestly, what I like to call it is it's almost like a no-brainer. I think a lot of people still aren't exactly sure how hard it is to break into UX. So I think the first part of the topic is if you take away anything from that today is like that's something you need to be aware of. So if you're hoping to break into the UX industry, like your reason for doing it needs to be based off of some sort of reality, right? So it's not this ideal version where you think like you can be a UX designer in like a few months, right? So based off that, we'll talk about the timeline, right? I see a lot of advanced class members joining the LinkedIn Live. So hello, all of you. Thanks for joining as well. This event, of course, is very much for all of you too. Then we'll talk about the real stats, right? So recently we were actually hiring for a past advanced class client, Polaris. So we can just share some of those stats. I think the hiring process is still going on there. So I can't share too much details on exactly what the hiring manager is doing right now, but I think that's some stats we can look at. And then, of course, just looking at all our advanced course members, giving them a congrats. And then not all of you, obviously, is part of advanced course. So part of this might be, like not being a good fit for you. Part of this could be maybe you don't have the time to do it and you're trying to do it in a future quarter. Part of it could also be like, like without a grant or scholarship, the tuition is out of your reach, right? So we still want to share, like, based off of the advanced course structure, what are some things you could apply to yourself, right? And essentially why we designed the advanced course the way we designed it. And there's a lot of important people today. So I just want to give some quick shout outs to everyone who's joining, who's in the backstage right now. Of course, we have all our partners and clients. I want to really, really appreciate all of your time. And I want to give a quick shout out to all the coaches and alumni, especially like the whole exec team that has helped us produce the whole event, the whole recruitment process, and then of course the next 10 weeks for the cohort. And last time, I wanted to give another shout out to the past alumni, Ria and Victoria, who did episode 2. So if you haven't checked out episode 2 yet, you want some really technical information, like this is the type of case study that lands you a job. That's for episode 2, right? So for today, we're talking about more high level and strategy. We're not going to go like really nitty gritty into like this is a resume example or this is a portfolio example. So if you want to look at that, episode 2 is your best bet. So you can look at that afterwards. And then we'll also like switch over to some Q&A with UDN in just a bit after we go through some of these content. So the first thing I want to play is Grace can't make it here today, but she recorded a little video for everyone. So I wanted to share that.
Yo, what is up, buddies and UX Go Dinos? I just wish I could make it right now, but I am literally at the wonderful airport, vlogging in public, talking to you live after Adobe Max, flying back to Bali. So you're probably listening to me right now, I'm probably on a plane, but I want to congratulate y'all for making to the new advanced class cohort. And congrats everyone for making it through our interview process. And thank you to our coaches who have also come back as alumni from our past cohorts, as well as our wonderful startup partners, Butternut, Hachi, and Homies. Also, if you guys are new here, you'll learn all about the UX design application timeline shared by Leon. So also shout out to our team at Design Buddies UX Go. I hope you slay your day with no cap and big facts and skibbity riz. Thank you.
Okay, it's a great note from Grace. So Grace, if you're rewatching this, hello. And then another quick note from Momi. If you interviewed for advanced course, you probably know Momi, and she recorded something just for all of you as well, because unfortunately she can't make it at this time.
Hi everyone, I'm part of the exec team here at UX Go, and not too long ago I was also part of the advanced course. I'm also an alum, And it's so rewarding to come full circles and help out the coaches and clients this year's cohort 18. And congrats to everyone who got in. This is going to be a great year. And I'm sorry I couldn't make it in the live because I'm right now at the Eras tour, dressed like this in Miami. Super sad to miss it, but I will be working closely with the coaches and the clients to make sure that you have the best cohort 18 ever. So see you live.
Okay, thank you both, Grace and Momi. If you didn't know, Momi worked with the coach team to, I think it was close to 100 folks that applied in 2024. So Momi had like literally back-to-back meetings trying to talk to all of you and then give recommendations from the interview. And then like crazy amount of effort. So really, really big shout out to Momi. So going into our hot takes, just cutting right into the content. Right now, I want everyone who's joining the call, even if you're already part of advanced course, you probably got asked this question already, but I think it's another opportunity to just reflect upon your decisions, right? If you really want to land a UX tech job, right? Why is that, right? Because the first sort of common ground I want to establish with everyone is like, this is not an easy thing, right? Like we talk about advanced course being 10 weeks, but we never say it's something like in 10 weeks, you're going to land a job, right? Because breaking UX has so many moving parts now. And I want everyone to think about like, why do you want to do it in the first place? And if what we end up sharing with you today scares you off, I think that might also be an option where there's nothing wrong with that, but potentially we can also save you a lot of time and money, right? And time is also money when you're a student exploring your career options. So if you're a career switcher or if you're a student trying to learn more about UX, I'm not sure how committed you are right now, but here are some reasons why you're not going to be a good fit, right? The first reason is this is pretty common too, so be honest with yourself, right? Like you might really want to work in tech, but your reason for choosing UX is just the fact that you could not code, right? So this is never a good reason to pursue UX, because if you pursue UX, it should be because you're very good at what you're pursuing, not because you can't do something else. Another common theme we see with career switchers is like, there's this fantasy about like making six figures, right? Like every entry level tech job you're like hearing from alumni is like, oh, you're making like if we use Google or Amazon as example, right, you're making like 150K right out of school, right? So it is true, but you need to know like that is only one perspective of working the UX industry. There's this long journey and there's a lot of roles that definitely don't pay that well too. So if you're looking more from just a salary perspective, that's definitely not a good fit. And the last one is this one I want to emphasize, right? Like I've seen a lot of boot camps where a lot of students sort of have this idea that landing a job is something you can do in a few months. So just sharing from some real samples and real data from our past 1,000 members at UXGo right now, landing something in 3 months, even if you're currently a student at a top HTI school, or maybe you're switching your careers and really spend a lot of like time polishing your case studies in the past few months, 3 months is a very unrealistic timeline, right? So if someone tells you like you can do something and then probably get some ideal outcome in 3 months, do your own research, right? Because that's a big part of UX. But honestly, like if that's the reason why you want to switch UX, in other words, you think it's easy, that's really, really bad sort of logic on why you want to work in a UX design industry. So with that sort of hot take / like reality check established, I want to share a general timeline and then also sort of tie into like how that relates to like advanced course members. So if you're part of advanced course, this is a time where you probably want to take some notes or screenshot of the deck. But even if you're not part of advanced course, you can model your own process under this timeline. And I know a lot of members attending right now, like you might have done advanced course in the past. So this is also something to think about. And yeah, I see some clients joining right now. We'll move to the client part soon, really quickly too. So yeah, very nice to see Jing joining in the chat. So this is a quick timeline, just everyone should know. And this is like just job hunting in general. So take a screenshot, take some notes here. In November, this is where you really want to finish your portfolio, right? You should be having your first interview. You can take a look at what we wrote here. So I'm not going to go over everything one by one. So if you're part of advanced course and you're working with your clients, such as like working with Hachi, working with like Butternut, working with homies, right? You need to think about like at this point, your website and the stuff you want to apply with, like that structure needs to be done, right? Because you're sort of waiting until you ship that product to update that site, right? But you can't like say that, oh, I'm finishing my project in December, so I'm going to start my portfolio in December, right? That's a very bad way to think about. So if you're part of advanced course, like make sure you just say something in the chat so I know like that part struck with you. And then in 2024, like December 1st-ish, this is ideally where you're having your first interview. And this is sort of the last chance to get your portfolio structure ready. And you should start applying to roles as well. And a good metric we had here is like your goal should be something like 100 to 10 to 1. And we'll talk with one of our advanced class alumni in just a second. She'll share about how to land her job with Google. Recently, she had to apply to like 1,000 roles, right? So these are the numbers you want to think about. And in 2025 January, this is something where many of you will be interviewing, but there will always be at least half of you that just procrastinated a lot. And you'll be like, oh, I finished my client project. That's already such a big achievement. So I'm just going to like assume I'm going to land a job, right? But that's not the reality. The reality is there's this big application thing that needs to be done. So in 2025 January, ideally you haven't procrastinated, so you have your portfolio and resume ready. A lot of times we've seen advanced class members in the past who have such good projects, but they never like prepare their material to apply. So that's always going to be a problem. And then I'm going to use some like examples right now, so you just understand that interviews are also always happening. So these are some roles. We have members from UXGo, past advanced class members, like interviewing right now, right? So some common ones, like last month, I believe Google's early career mostly wrapped up. So we have 4 members who interviewed last month for the final round, right? And then I'm mostly talking about early career, but there's some mid-level roles that are going on right now as well. But for early career, right, other common roles right now that are being interviewed for members are Figma, TikTok, and Tesla. So you need to know that like if you're trying to get a big tech sort of role, the timeline really matters, because if you're not ready to apply, then you would never be able to get an interview. And this is more for advanced course members, but I think for non-members, you can reference this timeline as well. This is a general sort of like timeline, so dates don't matter as much. But right now, for the first step, if you're just learning about like what the UX timeline is, what job hunting is like, maybe this is your first time going through job hunting, then you're attending events like these, you're doing a good job. So start prepping your material, but also look at a lot of well-structured resumes, case studies, portfolios, so you understand what the standard is, right? The same goes for advanced course members. So for the next 10 weeks, like for all of you, you're trying to build like the most ideal project, industry level, big tech level, that's very competitive. And whether you miss your opportunity for advanced class, like you didn't apply or like you weren't selected, don't let that sort of impact you negatively. So sort of reference what we are doing with advanced class yourself, right? You can look for a similar project, or you can start a personal project. You can, of course, interview for a future round of advanced class. But the whole point of doing advanced class is you want to get work experience, right? Because outside of your academic background, the work experience is this thing that's most important on a resume. And most of the time when you apply and you don't see any results, that's because you're lacking the work experience area. And for a lot of you in advanced class right now, or if you're listening to this, maybe you already have some work experience, right? Or maybe you're trying to use the advanced class clients on your resume as a big booster. So in a few months or even next month, you might already start getting interviews, right? So then when you get interviews, you really want to focus on just acing that interview, right? So it's like every time you get an interview, you switch gears and you're focusing on that interview. And these are some things you can think about. Generally, it takes like 2 weeks to really prep for an interview. But if you want to think ahead, like you're pretty sure your case studies are good, you're pretty sure like you would get some interviews, think about behavioral questions, slide decks, technical, and these are things we would talk about in future live streams for both members and non-members as well. And we'll keep sharing these insights and timeline, but hopefully everyone like screenshot it, save that, and have a good understanding what that is. And we also do this series across all campuses, and we do it like in person as well. So we have like all sorts of events at UW. We have a larger event at RISD and CMU, usually with their professors and faculty, just to talk about timelines and how to break into the industry. So that's also an opportunity where if you want to meet our coach team or partners in person, that's something we'd be really excited for. But really concretely, I know a lot of people will ask like, hey, you shared so much. I feel like I'm getting stressed out. So what can I start with, Leon? Then my tip for you is just start with your resume, right? If you have to start somewhere, just start with your resume. The resume represents your work experience. We have a free template. You can search up on Figma community. I think you should pull up. You should get a good understanding of like, these are the things I sort of need to do to get started on my resume. As you build out your resume, essentially you'll know like what your gaps are, right? Because once you build a resume, you'll realize these are the skills and work experiences you're lacking, right? And then once you're done with the resume, you can also list out something like this. So for all advanced class members, other than work on the project, this is something the coach is going to work with you, right? So for each of you, like if you're not part of advanced course, you want to list something out like this yourself, right? It should be some sort of checklist, right? And this should be very personal to you because only you know what you're missing. So that's why we recommend you start with. That's what we recommend you start with resume. I see some comments about like the CMU event, so that should be coming up. That's being planned right now. It's something happening in November with the HCI department and UXA at CMU. So that's like a student org. So that's something you can look out for. And finally, I just want to make a quick note. If you're not an intern or new grad, you apply all year, right? So this timeline we shared, this is very much like a new grad early career thing. And now I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about like just exactly why we designed the advanced course, why getting work experience is so important, and I want to look at some real stats for everyone, right? So some of you might know we were hiring for our past advanced course member client not so long ago, and we opened this application, right? I think the client itself is a pretty strong client. Like they have a good team, they have good devs, they've been working on their product for a long time, but we honestly didn't think it would be that competitive, right? Because we were thinking like 20, 30 some applications, and then we looked through that. But after recommending like a few applicants, we decided to open like this application on LinkedIn, and then instantly it like really blew up. Now, obviously, I think this might be like a good opportunity. It's paid, it's interesting to some members, so I understand why people would apply. But in like just a few hours, we basically got to 160 applicants, and we just closed our we literally just closed our application, I think in like 4 hours because we had so many, right? So that's a very real stat all of you can learn from. And what I want to emphasize for that is like, out of these applicants, like a lot of them were really good, right? So like they were not like random people. And since I know a lot of you, right, like whether from UXGo or other places or from events, like I try to be fair. So I didn't like I'm not the one choosing who to interview, right? I forward all the resumes and applicants to the hiring manager himself. So he gets to decide, right? But I just want to emphasize like there are a lot of really strong candidates. And this is a quick stat from about that 150 applicant breakdown. 50% were master's HCI students. Okay. Sorry, it took me a second. I think my camera got disconnected. So 15% were master students. About 20% were undergrad with strong backgrounds at good programs. So these are like HCI related programs. About 20% were switching career, and about 35% were bootcamp grads or some sort of like career switcher, right? That are more like certificate holders. So we classify that a little bit different from a student switching career, because a student switching career could be like psychology to UX, right? And it's very hard to get seen. So this is something you need to think about, right? Especially like if you are in those like not as competitive categories. If your academic isn't something that's going to like catch the attention, you might think about like putting a certificate or bootcamp in your title might not actually be a plus here, right? Because when someone's screening so many candidates, that might be the first thing that catches their attention, and it could come off as a way that disqualifies you. So I think those are things you might need to think about. And then even if you're at the top percent here, you still need to think about like, so for this role, we were hiring for our partner. That still only leaves you about like a 56 to 1 chance. Now, granted, most of you are probably applying to a bunch of other roles too. So it's not like this is your only job opportunity. But like you would see that your academics on your resume would be a non standout factor, because you're not going to be the only master's or like the only strong HCI academic student. So the work experience is going to be essentially the other 50% of the factor that gets you that interview first. So now with that established, I think a lot of you will understand like why for our selection, working with the clients, we really look at the client's background, right? Because we're not going to be able to work with big tech clients directly. So the best way we will work with is startups that feature big tech founders, right? If you look at Butternut, Hachi, Homies, their founding team is very technically strong. They obviously has the ability to get it shipped, and the project itself is very interesting. So that is the other side that you can emphasize other than just your academics. And that the same goes for like working with our coaches, right? Because the coaches are going to be with you in the project teams. So the coaches essentially are like your mentor, but also like your UX manager. So they're going to be from big tech. So these are the things that when you put into your resume, put into your portfolio, that's how you can stand out from the other additional percent. And I want to emphasize this being really important, because for our role, I don't think it's like that good of a role, because it's a part-time internship at a relatively unknown company, right? Like the client has a good background, but it's relatively unknown. So when you're applying to big tech roles, like where these coaches are from, then you do need to know, like over the year, like there's going to be so many applicants. So everything I just talked about is like 100 times more important when you work at like a big company. So a general stat I can give everyone is this is going to mean like for big tech, you do want to aim for being like the top 0.1 to 1%. So it's going to be super, super competitive. Like if you feel like you go into a room with 100 UX early career students, you are not at that top percent, then you would want to think about like, how can I get to that top percent, rather than just, like complaining it's very competitive, because I think that should be like a known factor, right? So hopefully this also helps. And then I know this is another thing that people mention a lot. It's like, well, I'm not trying to get in big tech. What if I'm just looking for any UX job as it pays, right? So that's why we use our client partner as the first example, because guess what, right? Like that's also what everyone else is thinking. Here are just some really, really quick stats. So I'm not going to go over them in detail, but this is from like tallied from like our UX Go team. So between new grad, early career, like these are the applicants versus the jobs being posted. And then this is the average length it takes, even if you're like from a good program, right? So hopefully these stats give you a good idea. And then Shauna, you can add Yudian to the stage. So we're gonna like ask Yudian some really, really quick questions, because she recently just started her position at Google as a contractor. She was an advanced class alumni. She did a master's. She did an HCI undergrad. So I think a lot of the questions you might have, she can talk about from her first person experience going through this whole process multiple times, and then just recently landing a job. So Yudian, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Wonderful. Okay,
Cool.
Yudian, so the first question I think people would want to ask you is like, how recently did you land your role?
Yeah, it's pretty recently because I just started my role this week. So it's my first week, and I just got to the office and kind of like explore everything, and kind of like new to everything. So I'm still on my onboarding process. So yeah, it's pretty recently.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I think the more recent, the better, because I think for everyone who's listening, who's early career, no one wants to hear from like a super senior designer talking about how they got a job like 5 years ago. So the more recent, the better. So the second question I think everyone wants to ask you then is like, how many did you apply to? And if you're watching the stream right now, you have any other questions, definitely write it down. We can ask you Dan as well. But second question, how many did you apply to?
Yeah, I think you kind of like mentioned it. I like just for now, I just mark 1,062. So that's like over 1,000 application to kind of like various industries and various levels of UX designer roles.
And like, what was the duration? So like, how many months did you finish applying to like these 1,000 roles?
I kind of started like last year, November, December-ish, and until now.
Okay, so on average, almost like 100 roles per month, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the third question was like, you talked about from last year, December to now. So can you share a little bit more about like your timeline? What do you remember what were some of the more stressful times? Sort of what did you do each month? Maybe you can share a little bit for everyone listening.
Yeah, definitely. So last year I was still completing my master, so I kind of like finish like my schoolwork and also applying to the job at the same time. So I didn't like commit 100% of myself applying to jobs. So I didn't apply like that many back to then. So I think like after I graduated this May, that's kind of like where I actually started to kind of like put 100% of my effort into applying to jobs. So that's kind of like uh, definitely increases the number a little bit. And I got this like job initially kind of like early August and kind of like after a few rounds of interviews. And that's kind of like I finally landed this job.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and just so everyone who's listening, right, like our goal for this call is to give everyone a very realistic output, especially if you're currently an advanced course student. Like these are the things you need to think about, right? So, yeah. So another quick question I want to ask was, I know as a advanced class member, you finished advanced class like a few years ago. So how was the process like of you going through job hunting now versus like a year ago? Do you feel like it was more competitive? Do you feel like it's less competitive? Like what's your thought like comparing the different hiring years?
Yeah, I have to say it is a really challenging period right now, as it seems like every job I apply to, like most likely I won't hear back from them. But I have to say that I feel like the situation is getting better now as I am hearing a lot more back like recently. Because like last year when I applying to jobs, uh, like all those big tech companies, they don't really have like a new grad opening rules. So they don't have a headcount, they don't have the rules open. So there's like no way for me to apply for them even. So but this year, when I applied to, I did hear back from them. So even though it is really challenging, but I feel like this year is like slightly better than next year, a bit than last year. Yeah.
And I want to just also a quick reminder, because I know people who are watching this might be from all over the world. So we're strictly talking about looking for UX roles, like early career in the US, right? So it kind of relates to Canada, but if you're like watching this from Europe, Singapore, somewhere in Asia, it might not be exactly the same. So hopefully like that's just a quick clarification. And then, yeah, I think this is a question I see Christine and some other folks asking you this in the chat already. So do you have like any sort of quick advice you want to give to like advanced class members this cohort, whether about UX Go or whether about like the timeline or about like how to handle stress, like any sort of advice you want to give them?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the most thing and I always tell myself is like believe in yourself because like I have been through a really hard time that I've applied like over 500 jobs, but like I not like hearing back from any one of them, and I definitely have been through a time that's like doubt myself. Okay, I already got all these degrees. I have like super proficient in all the design tools. Why I'm not hearing back from them? So I think like believing yourself is definitely the most important thing to keep in your mind for all the time. That's like definitely a role for you that you just need to find it. That's like kind of like how I say it. But I think it's also important to figure out what's the uniqueness about yourself that's kind of like help you stand out from among all the other designers, and to really emphasize that on your resume and portfolio.
What would be your guess? Because I know like you're just sharing from your perspective, but I think a lot of folks might be curious. Like, what do you think was the reason why, even with like a good undergrad and then a good master's, like the education itself, why do you feel like wasn't enough to just get a job by just, you know, like throwing your diploma?
Yeah, I definitely think attending those programs will give a really strong foundation of all the like UX design principles and all the other like really foundational design skills. But I feel like attending industry show is definitely different than academic program. It's not just like report, like writing on reports and it's quite similar, but it's like for most of the time, it's not like all starting from scratch. Because I think for a lot of academic programs, we do class project, and it's not like starting from scratch. We have really solid design process for each of the project. But I think that's kind of like slightly different from industry because you have to work cross-functionally with engineers, with the research team, and it's not ideal that I have to say it's not like 100% that your design ideas is gonna be launched and it's gonna be real. So I think that's like it's definitely a gap between the academic program and the real industry, and I believe that's something that we all need to adjust.
Okay, really good insight. And I think so. Suman and Christine are advanced course members right now. They both wanted to know like when you were like spending time with UXGo as advanced course member, what was some resource or tool you would recommend? Or Christine asked like, what were some of your favorite resources and tools going through the UXGo cohort?
Yes, I was attending UXGo like late 2022. So back to my bachelor, and it was such a wonderful time. And we had this opportunity that we work on a Google project, and I'm still kind of like talk about it right now. So I think it was a really high quality project, and I'm super proud of. And for the resources, I think I have always looked into on the UXGo website for all the like behavioral question guide and whiteboarding strategies. So all this kind of like design resources I always go back to before each round of my interview.
What do you feel like was the hardest part of the interview? I know like I helped you prepare the interview, but this is like more like I'm asking you more for like pretending like someone who doesn't know you. So what did you feel like was the hardest part?
Yeah, because I think it was kind of like the same process that like when trying to build like portfolio for yourself, but specifically for this interview, because you have to go back for the entire process of your one of the projects that you're proud of, and you can't show like every single detail of this project, but you need to really try to like go back to it and think about what's something that you made you stand out and what's actually the things that you have done that you're really proud of, you want to share with other interviewers. So I think that's kind of like the hardest part for me, because it can't just be like a really straightforward design process starting from research and all the way to the high fidelity prototype. So I feel like to really figure out where you want to show is the hardest part for me.
Okay, thank you, Dan. We have a lot to cover, so this was really wonderful, and I'll let the advanced course members from this cohort like connect with you after on Slack if they have more questions. But really wonderful to have you share your advice and tips. And then again, congrats on starting your new role. And yeah, if you have, I know you have to go in a few minutes, so I'll let you go. So Shanri, you can put Yudian away, and then thank you, Yudian, for your time. Okay, we will continue. So if you're, Christine, like folks, like if you want to find Yudian and other alumni, it'll be on our Slack. So very, very wonderful tips. And then also like, if you want to just learn from other UXO alumni, like I know a lot of you are asking for like really detailed stuff like portfolio, case studies and things like that. So those are all shared in like the last episodes from like Victoria, Ria. So probably the best thing is like, you could honestly just watch that episode too. Just some quick reactions. I know people are like, oh, 10 months, like that's so long. But if you watch a few of these slides I shared, like this is why I shared on average, it's like 8 to 15 months of dedicated prep, right? So like if you're not believing me, hopefully like this just grounds your expectations better, right? So if you really believe like you can somehow just become a UX designer in big tech in 3 months, that's probably not a realistic expectation. Okay, so going more into like congratulating like advanced course members, this cohort, a few things that are really, really important. Number one, be realistic. Number two, like we already recommended, like looking at these insights. And then I think Yudian brought this up too. Like if you want to just check out like what the process is like, you can easily go to like the UXGo site. You can go to like these skills and insights, and they will have like these different topics. You can see like different members working on them. So this is just a quick way for you to just get an overall idea like, okay, am I actually fit for UX? What is that process actually like, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not going to go in depth on that today. And then think back about what everyone shared, and then make sure like you're actually ready to commit, because you know it's going to be a long process. You need to trust yourself in the process. Right. So here's a TLDR. We also don't want to like, I know a few members were asking this recently during the interview. They're like, oh, is there a way we could just access all the alumni testimonies? Like you all have so many members working at Big Tech. The reason why we don't put like alumni profiles on our website directly is I don't think any alumni enjoys being used sort of like marketing. So we try to make more genuine human connections where like if you're part of the community, you can just go on Slack and actually like talk to these people rather than like seeing sort of like a testimonial on the website. So hopefully that also makes sense. And then now we're going to transition more into like advanced cohort this quarter. So if you're learning about advanced class right now, or maybe you went through the interview process, but unfortunately wasn't selected, you might have some questions on like, why did we have to do the interview in the first place, right? So the big answer is like mutual selection is very, very important. In 2024, right, we try to interview like all 100 of you, and that's a lot, right? So this is why I want to give a big shout out to like Momi. And we have this responsibility to our clients as well as all of you, right? Because when we do the team matching or when we recommend the teams to the clients, we want to make sure the students on the team and the clients and the coaches all make a good fit. So I'll share some examples in that in just a second. But if we use Hachi as example, right, they're building like more gamified streaming services. So we want to make sure students on the team are interested in gaming, or maybe they're interested in research, or they're interested in streaming or entertainment, or maybe AI technology, right? So all of those are things that we learn from all of you in each of these one-on-one interviews, and that's why we do all of them. So congrats again. Like if you made it, you were selected. We have a very good reason for it. And then we do wish we could have just accepted like everyone or have like really, really big teams, but that's going to affect like the quality of the cohort, right? So that's just something we have to balance it out. And again, just some reasons to choose you. Now that you're part of the cohort, some things to think about is you need to remember that you want to keep aiming to be that top 45%. So to be that top 45%, generally that means in your team, you want to be like a top performer, right? So just to share some of our team matching logic, this is one of our UXR students, and we want to make her like a team lead, right? So for her, she's a very good fit for one of the clients and partners we're working with, because for them, we see they might need more research support. And as a UXR lead with a psychology background, she could actually commit more to this team than maybe some other teams, right? And then for part of the team matching, we would also make sure that's how the coaches and the clients are working together, right? So this is one example. And then I know for UXR interested folks, like you might be curious, like, isn't it way harder to get into UXR because like there's even less roles than UX designer? But actually, like it doesn't have to be that way because there's also less people pursuing UXR roles, right? So I think Yudia mentioned that earlier too, like having your niche, knowing what your own top skills are, that's something we hope you develop through UX Go or on your own time as well. So you need to figure out what exactly is your unique niche and advantage. And then here's some other examples, right? Like we think UXR could be a good niche for Urgent or other folks because like Amazon actually hires a lot of researchers. And every year we've seen like PhD backgrounds land good roles with Amazon. So just knowing what your general strategy may be is also a good example, right? And the same goes for some of our other team matching. So some of our folks, like maybe you're not like that HCI academic driven like a PhD, but maybe you've done a lot of boot camps, right? So for Prince, the way we did our team matching was after talking with them, he might not as be skilled as like traditional like S-class members or work with like ex-Apple teammates. But we think like for him, working with like Butternut would be a better fit because he wants some more like exact technical guidance on shipping the products, right? So these are all the things we sort of think about between doing the team match, right? And we want to make sure that it's like whatever team you're on, the logic is actually kind of complex, right? So it's not like we're just interviewing you and putting you on a team because we're like, oh, your resume is about this level, so we just match you equally, right? So these are all things that we think about before we decide which team we would put you on, right? And also something to mention is I know not everyone's skill level is going to be the same. So even if you're selected, you're not selected based off your skill level, right? A lot of what we're looking at is commitment over just existing skill. So if we use homies as an example, right, Amy and Shawnari and other coaches are leading the team. Some of you may actually need more Figma support, right, because you might have some other experience. So that is an area where in your team, maybe we have some coaches and partners work with you in a dedicated fashion, right? And the things we want to do with this is like, we want to make sure your projects could be more guided, but it's still very much shipped, right? So those are also things we really care about. And you can see that's other part of the logic when we work with the team matching. And the big idea here, just to wrap up this category, is doesn't matter which team you're on or how competitive you think you are today. If you're really able to work hard in the next 10 weeks, we really think you're going to surprise yourself, right? Because for a lot of folks, we've seen in the past where even if it was their first legit like design project, by just following the structure, working with the coaches, they are able to really excel and do something they honestly wouldn't believe they could have made. So that's the level of standard we want all of you to have. And also just a quick reference, like all the teams usually have about the same outcomes. And what we mean by outcome is like sort of what are their chances of breaking into big tech or getting the career goals they want. So at the end of the day, it's like more up to you to succeed, right? Because we sort of do our best to team match you, give you resources. I see some questions about the cohorts. So today we're kicking off all the cohorts. So right now the cohorts are closed, but if you're interested in like future cohorts and things like that, you can check out UXGo and apply to interview for the future. And the last part I want to mention here before we just give quick shout outs to our clients and officially kick off our course is, doesn't matter what team you're on. Another important thing is you want to figure out what you actually need help improving as well. So as coaches, we do our best job to match in the team, give you guidance, but you need to address those problems head on. And what we often notice is a lot of members, they actually try to avoid their real problems. And this goes for everyone, not just advanced course members, right? So if you're watching this and you're not part of advanced course, you should do that for yourself as well, right? Because to break into UX, you need to be really good at least one of these, right? So either it's like you're very good at the soft skill side or you're very good at the design and hard skill side. So if you think about it, you're very good at the design hard skill side, that means like you don't even have to talk much or present much just by having your work. Like it's so good, other people just can't make it. You're the only person that can make it. If you don't feel like you can produce work like that, then maybe you need to balance a little bit more on that presentation soft skill side. Again, also you can lean super left, like on the presentation soft skill side, where like you are such a good presenter and storyteller. Any interview you get, you're able to convince them to get an offer, even if your design is sort of mundane, right? So those are the most important qualities to be a UX designer in the industry. So you can think about like what ends up being real advantage. And then finally, I want to just play a few quick videos from our coaches, and then we'll play a few quick videos from our clients, and then we would have officially kicked off our advanced course. And then all of you should be invited into, so if you're watching advanced course right now, all of you should be invited into a private call right after this. So if you haven't accepted that, make sure you accept that call. And then for all the Monday folks, all the clients, all the coaches, all the teammates, all of you should have meetings set up as well. So I'm not going to be in all these calls, probably not going to be in any of them. But again, I will follow up with the coaches and be really excited to see the outcome for all of you in just 10 weeks. So just to play a few clips from our coaches.
I'm really excited to help lead UXGo members on this team. I was a product designer at Twitch, where I've had the chance to work with creators and just finding a match in an entertainment and live streaming space. So I'll be partnering with Hannah, our UXGo coach, which is a rockstar designer at Epic Games. Jing, with 15 years of experience in ML, AI at companies like Google and YouTube, and also holds a PhD. Finally, Nancy was an experienced engineering director at Stripe and senior staff engineer at Google. So this team synergy is getting me really hyped about how we can help students and just build with this team. So if you're interested in designing UX in the entertainment, AI, or even gaming space, let's craft a case study together and see what we can do in 10 weeks. Right.
Okay, thank you, Adam. I know I cut Adam short, but just to play everyone's
Hey,
video.
Team Butternut, I'm really excited to help lead the UXGo members on this team. Bottlenet is such an amazing product with more than 300K users already, and it's backed by legendary founders and inspiring women in tech leaders like Pritika. I've seen some of the candidates from the most advanced UX Go members on my team, including ex-Apple AI designers, and I'm really impressed. I'm an AI designer at Microsoft, and I can't wait to help mentor everyone to advance their skills in AI product design. If you're interested in collaborating with over 10 senior devs, YC alumni, and other AI big tech mentors like myself, be sure to complete your interviews by this week. My team.
Yeah, so I'm going to cut that one short because like all the spots are full, so there's no interviews there, but I'll play Amy's.
Hey team homies, I'm a designer at Microsoft and I'm really looking forward to guiding all the newer career switchers and the up and coming designers on my team towards finding their UX career success. We have a very extremely rare opportunity to work on a life-changing project for social good. Homies is all about accessibility design and making a real impact on our users' lives, helping people with disabilities find a life-sharing partner. If you want to be a UX designer, this is an incredible course of work experience for you. We'll focus on learning the ins and outs of key deliverables like building specs for your dashboards and designing flawless UX experiences that actually get shipped. I'm extremely excited to work with all of you to craft a solution that truly changes our users' lives for the better.
Okay, and I will not play all our client videos because they could be pretty long, but this sort of concludes like our public kickoff session, and hopefully by bringing in alumni, bringing in everyone who either applied, interviewed, wasn't able to get a role, or applied too late, didn't get interview scheduled. Now all of you have a better idea what advanced course process is like, who our clients are, and then of course you have a better understanding of the general timeline. So as part of advanced course, you need to know in these 10 weeks, your main goal is to work with the clients, succeed, deliver, but then of course, don't forget about like working on your own personal goals and advancing your resume portfolio and using the opportunity to build whatever you need to build. So for us, we're determined to continue to bring everyone like this most transparent and goal-oriented and result-driven experience. So if any of you have any feedback or thoughts, just let the coach team know. You can let Momi, you can let Grace know, you can let your coach know, and they'll be happy to work with you to upgrade it. And yeah, now that you've watched the kickoff, you probably have a better understanding why we designed advanced course the way we designed it, why we interview everyone, why work experience is so important, right? And why we need so many coaches to support the course, right? For each of your teams, you probably have at least one big tech coach, and then you have other coaches and alumni working with you. And that's what we believe in, right? Because we're going to work together with the clients and really deliver the most high quality output possible. And there's also going to be something very exciting for cohort 18 that we're going to announce, which is we're going to do some sort of live event at the end that ties in with the past or live summits we have for Design Buddies and UX Go. So that's also going to be something new. We bring all of you alongside the scholarships and grants. And this is the start of a very good journey for all of you. We're super excited. This is the official kickoff. And then afterwards, for the next 10 weeks, each week you will be working with our coaches and clients directly and closely. And then we're going to have our small group meetings now. And then thank you, everyone. So we're going to switch gears. And yeah, and then Shanri, I'm going to end the live stream here. But if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to just check out the site yourself or just reach out to whoever I guess you were reaching out to originally. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your Friday. And then for advanced class members, we're going to do our small group meetings now.